Right. So if you were here, there's these nice Belgian chocolate walnut. Unfortunately, I cannot share, but I will save some for you. Otherwise, Catherine, go ahead. So I'd like to start with maybe a conversation about like how prototype testing is going, and if we can review that and what you saw went well, what you saw didn't go so well, for chances of improvement. Hey, Robin. We're just talking about prototype testing. What needs to be improved? Anybody can just. Robin, do you have an opinion?
If nobody wants to start, I can say something. This is Alina.
Hi, Alina.
Hi. So I had a couple of teams that tried yesterday. So nobody in my two sections tried the pool, the big swimming pool. So they just did the kiddie pool. And, you know, I think it went okay. So I definitely noticed some improvement since the last testing like 2 weeks ago. So whatever they figured out at the time, it was not working. They kind of tried to fix it. And hopefully everything is going to be okay. So I had two teams. They had two submerged pumps. And one was used inside for the microplastics, the microbeads, so that was fine. And the other outside, we were just making sure everything is fine and it's not slipping in the water. So other than that, I mean, I think it's okay, at least on what I've seen with probably more than half of my teams. And there will be another trial tomorrow, so just that's the official testing. So I don't know. Hopefully everything is going to be fine.
Right. So have any of you got a chance to go to the pool and looking at what's happening there? Robin or the other Robin?
Nobody in my team.
Danny and I went yesterday. It went pretty smoothly. Just one of Danny's teams. He seems pleased with their progress, but I'll leave that to Danny.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they showed up. It had buoyancy. It didn't really collect plastic, but they know what they need to improve, I think. So
I've got my 151s tomorrow there, or some of them. We did the 251 there, and it seemed to work out fine. There were no issues as far as everything being clean and lifeguards being attentive and all of that. So that seems good. The only thing I was going to mention is somewhere, and I'm not sure how to necessarily improve it, the workshop is being overtaken by very large prototypes. And
thanks, Robin. I wanted to say the same thing.
And it is perpetually full. So we have expanded hours, but it is getting really difficult to walk around and everything. So at some point, as we're developing these projects, we need to get pretty strict on size limitations, because not always bigger. You don't always have to build something really big to prove your point, and somehow that gets missed along the line somewhere. But just a side note on prototyping overall. And I don't know if anybody on the phone is doing either EPICS 1 or 2 this summer, but the workshop will not be available all summer. So the tools that are down there will not be available. There will be some that will be brought up that are smaller hand tools. So when the project is selected for this summer, you just need to consider that when you're developing whatever project is going to be done.
But I think there is a choice to use the design shop in the Brown Hall, right, for the summer project?
Right. Just the tools that are downstairs, like the miter saw and the bandsaw and all that, will not be available.
Okay. Okay. And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Talking about the workshop, so what I noticed, besides what Robin pointed out that there are like really big things there and it's really hard to walk around. I think that's a lot of materials and tools that are left on the table, so students don't clean after themselves and they don't put things back. So when you go back with another class, it's just packed.
Yeah.
So maybe we should remind the supervisor to remind students or send a reminder to students to make sure they clean up themselves and they put everything back, because it took me like 5 minutes to kind of clean the tables and make it available for my class. So,
and I think for the supervisors, they can do that, but it's really the mentors that after, when you, kick them out for their time, we have to make sure everything's locked up, because we've been missing a lot of locks and things like that, but that things are put away for the next class.
Yeah.
But yeah, the supervisor should definitely at the end of their shift should make sure everything's put away. And we could accentuate that with them tonight at the meeting.
Yeah, they shouldn't have to do it.
No, the students have to do it.
They make sure the students do it.
Yeah, and
I do. I
the
always
same
tell
with the
my
mentors.
students.
Yeah, and I always shut them down like 10 minutes early and say, put everything away.
Take it.
Yeah. So I mean, this is kind of backwards, but I should have started with, how amazing all of this is evolved, I should say. Because in the beginning, it's just like, oh, we're just making a project. And we're not doing anything with it. We're not doing any type of analyses. The students are just doing it for the sake of doing it and building, not understanding the purpose. But right now with all these, looks like versus works like and all the testings and everything like that, everything's just making a lot of sense for them. And that design is like an iterative process, and we're not just saying this, right? It's come into practice. And so I've seen like a lot of light bulbs going on just by taking their device, even though it's just a very small, whatever. I've mistaken that little micro bead tub for an actual bathtub. So when the students were saying, oh, I'm going to do it in a tub, I, for one, thought, oh, you're going to do it in a bathtub? Be careful, because the microplastic is going to go to the drain. It's like, no, Myrna, the tub. Your tub? Your plastic tub. It's like, oh, okay. By the way, that thing is kind of gross.
Yeah, we don't.
But the point being is like they're just gathering so much more by doing, and that's really kind of the purpose of this class. I mean, at least that's how I feel. A part of it, that is a big part of it. Now, the other thing is, I know it's really hard for us to do this, but I was thinking about like this whole project with the pool and everything like that. I know at first there was a little bit of miscommunication, where stuff is put and, what are all for the disinfection process where there is, or what's available. I was thinking if that were to be was planned a little bit like, how do I say it, in the beginning?
Yeah, we don't think
It
about
would
the
have been-
testing up front. We should do that a little more.
Exactly. That's exactly my point. And
We
so
said, not you. We all.
we all as faculty, when we decide a project, can we then think very early on about like what type of testing? Because I think this is really, really important, so that we are well versed, in guiding them. I guess that's the point.
Yep, I think that's a good idea.
So I'm gonna be the person that's just gonna say, hey, testing.
When do we decide on the next semester project? On the 5th at that staff meeting?
Will be until August.
Okay.
Oh, really?
Have to wait until that.
What was the deadline you put on your email you sent out asking for ideas?
Thanks for bringing that up. The deadline for project idea submissions is this Friday, so tomorrow at midnight. I'm not sure about when you'll be deciding on. I think it was August, just because there's so little time between the end of the semester and people taking off for the summer
Well, just maybe ask Leslie if there's time on the 5th when we have our meeting.
to go over initial.
I think so.
Because if we can decide, then that gives us more time to think about it.
At least the top 3 or something like that.
Yeah.
Not like we're going to work on it all summer, but if we run across things and we'll be thinking about it. And yeah.
Absolutely.
That sounds like good ideas to me.
Okay. So the next thing I think I put on the agenda is all about like the final weeks. Next week is SolidWorks exam, and I know that we have the design log check. And Yusuf, do we have the grading rubric for the design log padded down? I think so, right?
Yeah, the only thing that I discussed today and yesterday with Leslie via email, and the only thing that we're going to change in that the copy of the rubric that you have is, and you know this too, we're going to remove that one row regarding dog earring pages. So there'll only be 3 major areas that we'll look at for the design rubric, and the list of expected items I think is in the second major area on that rubric. So.
Okay. So would that be announced to the students anytime soon, or can we announce it to the students anytime soon?
Yeah, sure. I can go ahead and delete that one row and send it off to you and Leslie for final check before distributing,
That's a good idea.
program-wide distribution. So.
Yeah. And what are all people doing next week, just by curiosity? I'm doing a final practice on the presentation, or practice on final presentation, I should say.
That's what I'm doing.
You're doing that too?
Same. I do the same.
I'm giving the teams that are really struggling a final chance to refine their works like prototypes.
Oh, I see. So you're not grading that until then, is what you're saying, right?
I'm actually going to give them a grade tomorrow, and then the teams that really are struggling and want another opportunity to prove themselves, I'll let them do that. But they'll be kind of held to a different standard if they're not taking their grade until next week. So.
Got it.
Yeah, and I'm doing the same as Yosef, just because we had Monday morning testing and the students really weren't ready yet. I don't think we'll get through everything tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like my Tuesday at 3 p.m. section was far more ready than my Tuesday 8 a.m. or 10 a.m. sections.
Sure.
So I'm giving them a little bit more opportunity to have something that's worth demonstrating. And a lot of them are just kind of on the edge there. They're on the knife's edge. They're about to have a breakthrough, I think, a lot of them. So I'm going to give them a little bit more time.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel the same way about, it's almost like half and half. So I think for me, I'm being a little lenient as to when I'm actually putting in the grade for some of them.
In here, and some of them have different complexity levels of
Yes.
Prototypes. So some, like, their concept may be fine, but their prototype is rather simple and doesn't need to be much more complex. So they were kind of ready to go. And then others have some electromechanical interactions that are giving them some issues. So I'm allowing them a little bit more development time as a result.
Right. But otherwise, like I said, the SolidWorks exam is next week. Do they start at 7 o'clock? Is that how it works for the ones that are 8 a.m.?
There is a unique schedule this time.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, the 8 a.m. sections are typically starting at 7 a.m. The 10 a.m. sections are starting at 10 a.m. after the first 3-hour section is done and going to 1.
Mm-hmm.
And the 1 p.m. sections are going from 1 to 4. And then the 3 p.m. sections are going from 4 to 7. I'm pretty sure that was the only way Dedi could squeeze everyone in because it is a 3-hour exam.
Mm-hmm.
The majority of students, slim majority of students, finish in 2 hours. Most of the remaining minority finish soon thereafter. And then there's usually a couple stragglers that take the full 3 hours, but that's a very, very small minority. But some people do need the full 3 hours. And then, Alina, I'm sure you're aware of this, but just in case, Section Z.
Saturday
morning, 7 a.m.
Yeah, that's okay. They know. But I think you and Debbie talked to them about having the choice to go to other sections if there are seats available. So some of them considered that.
Yeah.
So, but I think they're fine. So don't worry about it.
25 seat sections may have some people from other sections, including especially yours, Alina.
Oh, nice. Oh.
So, but I think we'll be okay. And then we're going to do, of course, all the design log grading while that's transpiring. And so what I'm going to do is sometime between now and the end of this weekend, I'm going to send a mass email through the SolidWorks Blackboard system to all EPIX 151 151, not 155 students to make sure they remember to bring their design logs in to class so they can get graded. And it doesn't matter if they get graded out of section, because Hamid and Kevin will have access to all the sections grades on separate tabs, 1 tab per section, similar to what we did for sketchbook grading. So even if the person's out of section, as long as their name and section letter are clearly denoted on the front cover, Kevin and Hamid will quickly be able to find them, because every section tab has the whole roster populated in there already. So we won't have to worry about name misspellings and stuff like that, and we'll instantly know which names don't have a grade yet assigned. One minor warning caveat to everyone is that the rosters that are in those spreadsheets, because I don't feel like doing another 20 copy pastes from different rosters, are only up to date as of week 7 or so when we did the sketchbook. So anyone who's dropped or withdrawn since then is still going to be listed on the roster. So you'll just have to ignore those on your own when you look at the grades at the end of the week. So.
All right. So thank you for that information. And so I just wanted to kind of share a little bit. I don't know if all of you were here Friday when Robin was talking about how you would like to set up the practice on the final presentation. Would you like to share that so that people?
Oh, sure. So for my Epics 2 section, and was going to do it for Epics 1 as well, when each of the teams got up, well, because in Epics 2 they're all doing different projects, we talked about who are the stakeholders that would be interested in these projects, whether they were investors, whether they were NGOs, environmental groups, communities, whatever it might be. And then for all of the people that were doing peer reviews of the presentations, I assigned them to be different stakeholders to ask their questions from that perspective. So that way, and they actually got into it fairly heavily, in the sense of one team would just be totally like an investor and ask about economics, and another would be an environmental group and they would focus solely on that. Another would be homeowners or whatever it might be. And that seemed to raise and be a much more lively debate because a lot of times people were only thinking about it from the technical aspect. They weren't thinking of it from those other stakeholder perspectives. So it gave for a much richer Q&A. So I was going to do the same for the 150 ones for their pitch presentations next week.
For their actual final presentation versus practice.
No, their practice.
For the practice.
Yeah. And then that way they can think about
Yeah. Good. Okay.
All the different, yeah.
and then they can change it up per, so it's not that they're always an investor. You can rotate it around is what I did.
Right. Makes sense.
Yeah, I
Seemed
thought that
to
was a
work.
really good idea.
Yeah.
I'm going to do the same thing. And so I was looking at the agenda, what else needs to be talked about? I guess, does anybody have comments on the final rubric and whether or not, that's working well? Obviously, maybe only works like prototype is the one that we've been doing or working with.
So I haven't looked at it. I have a question.
What?
Is there there's not a separate rubric for works like prototype that's embedded within the final?
Yeah,
Okay, that's
maybe
cool.
that has to be.
No, that's fine. I just,
No,
okay.
I
I knew it was 5%.
rubrics. So.
It's a compound of
There's
3
a-
different things.
Yeah, there's a presentation rubric, a works like prototype rubric, and a final report rubric, all in the one file.
All in one.
And if anyone's interested, I sent out a whole class version. I don't know, that might not be useful to some people. Everyone has their own technique for processing and pasting the grades into the grade book and all that stuff. But at least for the way I do it, it works pretty well for me to have like the whole class listed on sheet for each rubric and then have all the boards go row by row. So I sent that out, I think earlier this week.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that, Yosef. Yosef and his spreadsheets.
Thank you, Yosef. I do it that way too.
I'm a big fan of spreadsheets, yes. I know.
Yes, you are. There's a spreadsheet project. Let's give to
Yeah.
Yosef. Oh, and peer eval, right? There's a
Oh,
peer
yeah.
eval coming up. Am I right?
Peer eval, yep.
Okay.
Nothing new on that. It works the same way as the old peer eval. We won't even use a different system. It'll be the same links as before and everything like that. And the way you can tell apart the midterm team evals from the end of semester team evals is just from the timestamp. So if you just sort by date in your final spreadsheet, you'll see a block of evals from a few weeks back, and then you'll see a block of evals from the dates around the end of next week, and that should separate them pretty cleanly.
Will you resend the link? I think I deleted it.
Sure.
Thank you. Not like you have nothing to do. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
Undeleted box purges, or I could look it up myself.
Can you send it to everyone, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
No probs.
All right.
I have two more slides kind of along this teamwork communication emphasis we're having this semester. It's how to be supportive, supporter versus, I forgot what the other word is, but I call it skeet shooter. People that just like to shoot the skeets as they're shot in the air versus communicate in a critical versus collaborative, right? And so there's two slides that people can use to frame up before the peer evals. Just a reminder and another way to think about giving constructive feedback versus critical tear down feedback. So it's just some rules of thumb for being supportive versus critical. I'll send those to Myrna, you'll send them out.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you. I forgot we had like one more. Whoops. So in the in-class, I haven't got a chance to track, but do we have enough judges for in-class presentations?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah, you can keep signing up to judge other sections and inviting outside judges. Let's see. At the probably like Monday of next week, I'll combine the list of outside judges and mentor judges, and we'll see which sections really need people.
Okay.
So are we definitely not going to have outside judges for the final competition? Is that just going to be mine?
So, no, that has changed again, possibly. So if you, Joseph, if you could send me the names of those and email addresses of those people, your friends who might be able to.
Okay.
And then I think we'll know today if we'll be able to have enough upperclassmen student judges or whether we will reach out to outside judges. I don't
And
think
Danny
it's
too,
a
right?
final decision. Yeah. And
Danny had.
is Danny on the call? I don't think.
No, he is.
Okay. So yeah.
I'm on the call.
You are the.
Danny, then could you send me your contacts as well?
Yeah, just send it to you, Catherine.
Yeah.
Well, I forwarded him the email, but yeah, I'll send
Okay.
you his email info and get you guys in touch.
Is your person planning to judge the final competition?
The other day when I talked to him, he was planning on coming. So
Oh, okay.
if you would still like him to be there, if it's changed, that's probably okay. Either way.
I'll let you know tomorrow.
That's Jared Dean.
I have 5 contacts, but they're all pretty much almost unanimous in saying that it would be difficult for them to leave. They all work in the city, so it would be difficult for them to leave in the middle of the day and come back.
But
So,
they might be able to judge
likely
the
to be able
final
in the final in the evening, yeah. I mean, I don't have a commitment from all 5, maybe just 1 or 2, but definitely the likelihood of them judging, it goes up if they can just do it in the evening on Thursday.
Okay, I'll ask Leslie to make a final decision today on who she wants judging the final competition.
Yeah, maybe that would be best for the final competition.
Yeah. For in-class competitions, it can be outside.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And I just have a question about new or any judges that are upperclassmen or grad students. I mean, I teach a lot of them, so I just don't know what kind of numbers you're looking for at this point and what, I guess, qualifications we would all like for judges. You know, if I just want to do a call generally in one of my classes.
Okay, I'm not sure either, so I will let you know. I think we were going to talk to maybe one more student group and then reach out to more people.
Okay, thanks.
And then, is everyone okay with sticking to the same rubric for judging that we had last semester? I don't know if you even, I guess.
Maybe it's worth kind of discussing how though.
Has anyone figured out a way or proposed a way to do a little bit of judge score leveling somehow to normalize the scores? Because some people tend to be swayed to higher numbers, and some people tend to be swayed towards the lower numbers. So someone's best may be a totally different total score than someone else's best.
Someone, was it you or someone else told me that, you know, the judges then after doing all their scores, they actually did deliberate and do a rank
Oh, okay.
together.
Yeah, I think we're going to do more ranking, more of a focus on ranking than scoring in both rounds.
Okay.
And,
That would help a lot, I'm sure.
and maybe instead of it doing a 1 to 5, it's just a high, medium, low, or
Yeah.
something that's,
Yeah.
The category is just like,
yeah, that might focus on, yeah. I don't know.
yeah.
That is good changes.
So I think that's all I have on the list, but that's a really good question, the rubric. And before Robin goes, I just wanted to make a shout out to Robin and her initiative like last night. Everything went so well, and serendipitously, Leslie won, or Leslie's team won.
Yeah.
And so,
And the same with Myrna and Catherine.
hurrah.
They did a huge, we're going to pat each other on
It's
the
just
back.
all three.
But yeah, Leslie's team won. So they will have access to $20,000 to move forward on their project. They did a great job. And so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And we're done,
Congratulations.
except for the end stuff.
Yeah, and I have about like 1.5 of this really yummy chocolate left, and I'll just leave it out for someone who is lucky for tomorrow. But thank you so much for bearing with us through all these.
I have a question
Yeah.
about one of the things that's coming up at the end of the semester, if it's okay.
Yeah.
My question is about mentor evaluations, because I think this is pretty important, significant. It's 10% of their grades. And from my understanding, after the discussions at the end of the last semester, I just want to make sure that somehow, as much as we can, we are consistent. And is there any way we can bring this up, discuss what actually this 10% mentor evaluations we are going to take into account? I know we said in the syllabus what we are going to look for, but how exactly we are going to score that? And is there any way we can have a conversation to kind of try to be on the same page?
Yeah. Just based on what we just said, the final rubrics for the judging, as well as what you were just saying as far as the mentor evaluation, I think it's worth maybe having a discussion. So I don't have.
What I did last semester was I consider 2% maybe was regarding attendance, and 2% was participation to class, and so on. But I'm not sure if this is something that everybody does it the same, or is there any way we can just find a way to do things the same?
Yeah, and honestly, when we had 2 mentors in the sections, it was a lot easier just kind of to talk about this amongst ourselves, and have a better, an objective approach. But honestly, I don't do what you do, you break it down so. And I know that someone actually does that. I do keep tally about absences, though. That's one of the things that, I'm very stern about that. If they want to be absent, they have to let me know. And if they don't, then, they get points down, that type of thing.
Yeah.
I keep mental notes about all the ones that are very, very active and everything like that. Oh, and by the way, I know this is kind of diverging a little bit, but for those of you that haven't got a chance to put in the names of the Student Advisory Council that you can think of, can you please send it to Catherine and Leslie? And this is about the Student Advisory Council that we are going to kick off. And hopefully we'll utilize them as a sounding board for improvements and everything like that. And so while we're on that note about students, just want to remind everyone. But back to your question, Alina. Quite frankly, I don't really have a very padded down methodology, if you will. Can anybody comment to that?
I was kind of worried about the variation that could happen in that 10%. So I took some of the subjectivity out in a manner similar to Alina's. And I made my attendance is worth half of it, actually. And I keep a pretty accurate attendance with a little checklist I have. So my attendance is going to be 5% out of the 10%. And I don't really have a specific rubric for the remaining 5%. The more subjective part, the observational part.
I'm sorry, I got interrupted. Sorry, Yosef. So there's no real way of, I mean, making this consistent, or is there?
Well, I'd say that, you know, if we look at the what we put out in the syllabus, kind of as Alina had said, that I kind of divide that roughly evenly. And for me, just the respect part is really important. So that they're paying attention in class and listening to their teammates and participating when we have the opportunity for team time and that sort of thing. And so I weight that somewhere around 4 to 5 of it. And then attendance is somewhere in there as well. And then participating more in the group is around 1 to 2. So that's just like roughly how it goes. But yeah, it's still somewhat subjective. And I'm pretty comfortable doing with that, actually. But that's just me.
Maybe that's the way to go, and taking all those 3 or 4 categories and making it to where you assign all the different points and then go from there. Alina, are you seeking for us to make it a lot more consistent all across the board to assign points?
Well, have an idea what everybody's looking at and how much it's weighted. Like, maybe I had less consider attendance than Yosef's class or something like that. So is there any way we can discuss it? And because of course everybody's looking at attendance, participation to class, respect, and all the things outlined in the syllabus. I'm not worried about that, but how much is each one of these weighting in the
how many
10%?
points
That's my question.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's worth bringing up. Catherine, we don't really have time to do any type of staff meeting after this, right? I don't think so. This is
We
too
could try to
tight.
schedule one next Friday at noon. There's just none already scheduled.
Okay.
That's up to.
All right. So how about we do this? How about we propose a meeting for next Friday? And, it's like an not so much mandatory, but optional. But I really like the idea of maybe having that conversation. And we'll bring in Leslie, and hopefully Leslie can make it. And I like the idea of having assigned points, if you will. And so if we can decide on that,
Yeah.
Then share it with the rest of the group. I think that would be a great idea.
I think that would be good because this is a significant portion of their grade.
Yes,
10%.
you're right.
It's almost
You're
like
right.
the final report. So
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same as the final report. Is that?
Consistency will be really helpful.
Yeah, I agree. I'd like it to be consistent. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up, Alina. That's really important.
Sure. And it's also like, all the students, they see all these rubrics and they are very clear and very, straight to the point. They know exactly how much they get, but there is nothing for the mentor evaluation except what they told them from the syllabus. So I would like maybe, at one point to see something more like, okay, this is what you get, this is what you get, this is what you get.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then it's easy for us too, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing is like for us to be consistent within, right? So like, for instance, you and I have 3 sections. We want to be consistent there too, right?
Right. Yeah.
All right. So
Okay.
we still have a few minutes left if someone else has other, concerns, comments, questions. Or you know what?
Do you want to look at what were you going to say?
I mean, Leslie's not here, but should we then start to assign those points? We still have a few minutes. Or is it worth, maybe
We
waiting?
probably start discussing and just, we don't have to agree on something right now, but just like maybe brainstorm on that, like what's the best way to do this.
So someone mentioned respect. I believe that was Greg, and then attendance, and the third was participation. Is that right? Should we add?
Yes, and
else?
respect.
Sorry, what's the question?
So if we were to make like the different categories, so the question, or Alina actually brought up the whole consistency of how we were going to be doing the mentor eval more consistent, right, across the board, because it's a huge chunk of the grade. It's 10%. So I think the conversation was that we will then, maybe have all the different categories, maybe decide together what all the categories are, and then really assign points to all those different categories. And then we'll make it consistent that way. Does that sound like a good plan? I mean, let's start the conversation. And if we don't finish the conversation by the end of the day, we'll continue on another time.
So one thing that's very clear is attendance, right?
Yes.
And we can decide like how much out of the 10% we allocate to or we consider for attendance. And then I would like to see something like, okay, if you miss like 1 to 3 classes, it's 20% of that points deduction. If you have 3 to 6, or it's 50% and so on. So that's what I want to see and make sure. Probably the attendance, it's the one that we can be most consistent on. Participation to class, hard to kind of evaluate this in numbers, like how many times did you talk? It's hard. But we know the students. So that, I think we have more leverage on that. But if we can say participation, it's 3 points out of the 10 or something like that. But at least we know it's that chunk.
Right.
I think another useful one would be valuable use of team time, because some people may participate in class, they may be outgoing, but when you give them team time, do they have to be like encouraged to get off their phones and start using the time to be productive for our class, or are they trying to work on homework or something like that, or just generally distracted and not being productive? That might be another area we could add.
That's very good, Joseph. This is exactly what I've seen, and I was thinking like in my evaluation, I'm gonna deduct points for that, because if you were on your phone when you had team time, it's not counting as participation. So that's exactly the kind of discussion I wanted to have.
So, so going back to the categories, if you will, right? The first thing that you mentioned was attendance, right? And that's kind of clear. And then participation. And are we breaking down like the team, what was it? Best use of team time. Is that part of participation or a different category, or what are your thoughts on that?
I would say it's also participation, because it's participation for the class, right?
Okay.
So.
Yeah, and I agree, especially because that's a way that students who are not comfortable speaking up in class as a large class group can get those participation points, I guess.
Right. So use of team time and, kind of like a discussion in class, maybe. Contribution and discussion in class. And then like the overall categories, can we add another? Did someone say respect? How would you gauge that?
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, I said respect, and I think that goes along with engagement and that kind of thing. And I think that one's obviously a little more vague, but we know the students who are coming to class wanting to learn, and I guess promoting the learning process for the rest of the class as well. And those are sort of detract from it. So I think that goes along with the participation, but for me, it's a little bit different and fuzzier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so with a total of 10, unless someone else wants to add another category, if you will? Or do you think we should just start with this?
That's all I got.
Yeah. What does the thing say? I know, like, it says respect. Oh man. Let's see. So has it been a long week for y'all?
Yes.
I'm fully sequestered in grading mode, which makes the week even longer. So yes.
Yes. So Alina, if you were to put all points, different points to all these three categories, attendance, participation, and respect, how would you do that? How would you assign the points?
Attendance, I would get probably 4 and the other 3 and 3. So just to break them even.
Yay. Anybody else have a different opinion on that, do you think?
No, I think that sounds good, especially because those other two overlap somewhat.
Yeah.
And so that's good. And then attendance is so important for this course because we only meet like 1.5 times a week. Essentially, where it's, if they don't come for a 2-hour session, that's big. So Alina, did you have ideas on how you want to do the points? Because so for my ESCD course, I take off, essentially it's 1% for each course each class that they miss, that's unexcused. And so, they have plenty of excused absences, but the ones where they don't show up at all and contribute to the learning process and don't tell me, then that's kind of the process there. But that's like 1% of their entire grade, and I inherited that from Juan. I think that's a little harsh. So, yeah, we can talk about that.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to make it way more complicated than it is, but, it's a difference if you miss Friday when it's 1 hour, and usually it's a lecture time, and it's, I think, another thing when you miss 2 hours during the week when with team time or a very important part. So I kind of look at that too, like, okay, yeah, you missed 1 hour was a lecture, maybe it's okay. But I don't want to make it more complicated. So we probably should stay like, if you have more than 2 unexcused absences, then we deduct 1 point out of the 4 or something like that.
Yeah, I think we just need to make it more, simplified enough for everybody to follow.
Yeah, so just something like that, like if you have in between this number and this number, this is how many points off you get. So,
and the thing is,
that's something that we discuss.
Yeah. And the thing is like, I wish that we had done this, obviously in the beginning, and so that we share it with them before. And this is like an afterthought, right? And so, I don't know, like if we were to share it now, it's like, oh, then I could have been better in participating or something like that. You know what I mean? So, it could be.
Yeah, I understand it. So
it could be.
Again, it's something that it's up to us as a discussion, like if we want to do that or not. So, but
yeah, and I was gonna say it could be that we're just sharing it amongst us, like mentors, for us to be consistent, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to then announce it.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah, because it was announced at the beginning. They know what we are grading them off. They just don't know how much.
Not exactly.
So they were aware since the first day of class they will have this grade. So.
Yeah, and I think it would be good as a guideline for all of the mentors for this semester, just so that for that consistency, and that if there are students who complain about their mentor evaluation grade, then we have something as a group that we've decided on that is very reasonable, that we can defend how we graded them. But yeah, I don't think the point system, giving that to the students now, it would be very beneficial to any of us or the students either, since they can't do anything about it at this point.
Mm-hmm. Right. So we're about like 3 minutes to wrap up everything. Is everybody, would you have the time to meet once more on Friday noontime next week? You think that's a good idea?
Yeah, I teach at that time, so I can make those anyway. But probably a good idea.
Yeah, I forget that you teach that time, Greg. Just to wrap up,
So,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
meeting at noon on next Friday?
Yeah, or is Thursday better for you, Alina?
Thursday I can call in. Friday I have class at noon. So,
Okay. So the more I think about it, and I haven't checked Leslie's schedule because I'd like for Leslie to be there. But between Thursday and Friday, I think we're just going to need another conversation just to kind of like make sure that we are all the loose ends, we've all tied that up, and then this maybe put a final discussion on the mentor evaluation and the final judging rubric to make sure everybody's on top of that, or I should say abreast about that. But other than that, I don't, yeah, I want to schedule it for half an hour. Someone told me that, scheduling for an hour sometimes is just excessive. So if we can make this for a half an hour meeting, that would be awesome.
that would be great.
Yeah.
I just have a
cool.
quick question.
Yep.
For the course evaluations, are people doing that in class or just advising students to do it outside of class, or what's the timeline for that as well? I can't remember from last semester.
Sure, I know. I think I'm sorry, go ahead, Alina.
Oh, sorry. So last semester I kind of reminded them and I asked them to do it outside of the class. So, and I had a good turn around. So,
Okay,
but I
sounds
asked
good.
them to do it outside the class
Yeah,
Great.
because there was not enough time in the class. There were too many things at the end of the semester and they were kind of like, oh God, that's a lot. So,
and technically we shouldn't be present as, in the room anyway when those things happen. And the thing is like, I think they get reminders often enough that they should be doing that, and as soon as that is open. And my understanding is, isn't it open April 30th? Or is it already open? I don't know. I could be wrong with the dates. All right, is there anything else, or are we good to go for today at least?
I think we're good to go.
I'm sorry, someone was saying, was that Greg or Danny?
Yeah, I just said all good. Thanks for putting all this together. I think the testing has been really good for the students overall.
Yeah, I'm wishing that they're getting the best out of it. So anyway, thanks to all the pool guards and for bearing with us through this curriculum development meeting. I know sometimes it's been painful, but we tried our best. So, all right, so maybe sometime next week, Thursday or Friday, we'll wrap up with a half an hour meeting. All right?
Excellent.
Take care, everyone. Have a
Sounds
good
good.
day.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
See
Thank
ya.
you. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.